this episode of Boruto Naruto Next Generations. The Naruto Gaiden arc intensifies as Sakura becomes the prisoner of the Frankenstein-esque Shin Uchiha. Sarada finally learns who her true mother is, and we finally get the return of everybody's favorite lip-licking snake bastard. That's right, the King of Pop, Orochimaru, has officially returned. The only way that his entrance in this episode could have been more epic is if he was wearing a fedora and one single rhinestone glove. I don't know why I associate Orochimaru with Michael Jackson all the time. Maybe it's all the weird plastic surgery that he's always doing to himself. Maybe it's the fact that he's obsessed with children and using their bodies. Allegedly. What I will say is, I love Orochimaru. I'm glad to finally see him return, and I continue to question how they could potentially let this weird murderous killer actually be alive and continue to experiment on people in the modern-day, super safe ninja society. It's something that just you have to accept, I guess. I mean, I guess he's always under constant surveillance, and maybe he's not necessarily experimenting on humans anymore, but a lot of his old experiments are still causing a lot of trouble, and that's the basis for this week's episode of Boruto, which, again, hilariously, does not feature Boruto at all, and is mostly dedicated to Sasuke and everything that's going on with his daughter, who is having one hell of a rough time in this episode, as she just wants to know who the hell her mother is, and she ends up luckily being able to travel with Naruto and Sasuke to Orochimaru's hideout, because he knows something about this Shin Uchiha, and when they finally do arrive there, Sarada realizes that these are all of the people that are in the picture with my father, so it's the perfect time to question them and learn who the hell my mama is. And, of course, she runs into Suigetsu, which is already going to get her into a lot of trouble, because Suigetsu's not exactly the sharpest knife in the drawer. He's not a very smart dude, and he actually ends up performing this, like, DNA test with supposedly Karin's umbilical cord. Why in the hell would they even have that? And somehow they're able to get a perfect match with Karin and with Sarada, so she totally believes that Karin is her mother. And so does Suigetsu. And so does Naruto, because he's eavesdropping during this entire conversation. And as you could possibly imagine, Sarada is pissed the hell off. She's also just incredibly sad, and my god, it's just so sad to see her cry so much, and she's so fucking adorable. You just want to hug her and tell her everything's gonna be okay, but she's sick of hearing that shit. She's sick of being lied to, and she just wants some real, honest answers. And like I said, everybody is under the assumption that Karin really is the mother here, even Naruto himself, and he seems pretty pissed over this fact, but he tries to reassure Sarada that she shouldn't be too angry despite the fact that Sakura may not actually be her real mother. There are still those feelings, those longings, those memories that you always had with your parents that you will never forget, and that's something that simply cannot be defined by blood. The more you know. So yeah, Sarada is completely pissed. She's also incredibly upset and very conflicted, which is where a lot of the drama comes from in this episode, where she's constantly fighting with herself. Should she be mad at Sakura? Should she not be? I mean, she might have been lying to her this entire time, but then again, she was always there for her when she needed her. There's even a nice little flashback scene in this episode, which is fucking adorable, as you would probably expect, and there's also a little funny scene where Sarada thinks her mom is being incredibly pervy when she's remembering a certain moment with Sasuke, which I wonder what the hell she was talking about. It did sound really damn pervy. The thing that is important about this scene is you can understand where Sarada is coming from in her anger. Everyone in this ninja world is incredibly secretive about everything, and they're not giving her, like, any straight answers, and they're making sure to be as cryptic as possible. And the fact that Naruto is even surprised by the events that Karin could possibly be the mother shows how secretive all of these events around Sarada's birth actually were. And I'm sure they're going to explain that in the next couple of episodes. But before we actually get to that, we're going to have to get to some kick-ass action and one hell of a confrontation with Shin Uchiha, which is basically what this episode is building up to right here. We get to go back to his weird, creepy lair, and we get to learn a little bit more about him. Apparently, all of his sons are actually just clones of himself, and the only reason that he keeps them around is for spare body parts. Whenever he gets damaged in battle, he basically just kills one of them and takes exactly what he needs, which is what he does in this episode right here, in a very disturbing scene where one of his clones is actually on a table and he's manipulating this like group of knives which are like floating over its body because that's his ability to control these weapons, and he just cuts right into the kid's stomach and just starts harvesting organs and putting them into him and implanting them. And a lot of this also has to do with a lot with the background of Shin Uchiha, which they actually do get into in this episode right here, and I also love the fact that it connects to events from the first half of the series. So that's a really great way to integrate something new into the story, while also at the same time reminding the viewers that this actually is something that is impacted from the original series, thus making it seem all the more important and definitely gaining a lot more attention from the viewers themselves. So, let's jump into it. Shin Uchiha is some sort of failed experiment from Orochimaru. Now, Shin is not actually an Uchiha himself, it's simply something that he proclaims because he's so obsessed with Itachi Uchiha and, of course, trying to revive the Akatsuki. Why? Because he wants to force mankind to evolve, said every single anime villain ever. Now, Shin apparently has this rare ability where he's able to accept a transplant from any form of human tissue, whether that be organs or skin. So, that's what makes him, like, the perfect test subject for Orochimaru. He can cut off an arm, clone that arm, grab someone else's, and graft it right onto his body. In fact, they do confirm that the arm that Danzo was using, the one that was covered in all of the Sharingan eyes, was actually the original arm of Shin Uchiha. So that's a pretty interesting fact, and it makes sense. He had a giant arm that was filled with Sharingan, so that's how he was able to actually pull this off, by implanting these things all over Shin's body. It's pretty damn creepy. That and the fact that he's, as Orochimaru calls it, a Kage Bunshin, a shadow clone that will never disappear. And when you put it that way and you actually look at what his powers are, man, what a creepy-ass moniker. It's like he's not even human and he doesn't even exist at all. It really turns him into a really disturbed and very creepy individual, and that's not even just talking about the overall design. He is one creepy bastard. It's also cool to know that the reason he doesn't have any teeth is because that's how all these clones were actually created, from his teeth and from his nerves. Think about that for a second. How is Orochimaru allowed to still actually do this shit? I cannot believe they allow this guy to freely experiment and actually, like, continue to make himself look younger. Yes, Orochimaru looks younger in this episode. Younger than we've probably ever seen him in the entire series, aside from a few flashback sequences. And it's disturbing. Naruto brings it up, and they have to question, how'd you pull this off? Because the way you did it before involved, you know, like, grave robbing and dissecting people. Like, I'm sure you're not doing this with some sort of miracle cure. I mean, Orochimaru is not drinking kale shakes or anything. He's doing something a little more extreme. I mean, he still has bodies in test tubes in his lab. Somebody question this, and somebody put this dude behind bars. It's so strange. The only security they have at Orochimaru's hideout is the fact that Yamato is hiding out in the back, and that's just basically an excuse to see Yamato again. By the way, Yamato, great to see you again. It's a shame that you didn't really do jack shit in this episode right here. What's the rundown on this week's episode of Boruto Naruto Next Generations? I'm really enjoying the Naruto Gaiden arc. One, it's moving at an incredibly brisk pace. They're going faster than the actual manga version, and that's something that I can really applaud. It shows that we're just going to get a lot of great stuff in the next episode, which if the preview is any indication, hell fucking yes. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm sure we're going to get some really creative and super fluid action scenes. What I really loved about this episode was learning more about Shin Uchiha, though. He's a very intriguing character, and the fact that there's a unique being out there who has the ability to transplant things from just about anyone just makes him so cool and unlike anything that we've seen from the series. And that's saying a lot because there are a lot of villains in the series who basically try to have immortality in a lot of different ways. And we've seen that in such creative ways that I've never seen in other things. Like, there's Sasori, who turns himself into a puppet. There's fucking Kakuzu, who has like 4 hearts and has stitches all throughout his body. There's Hidan, who has to commit all of these crazy ritualistic things in order to kill people and to torture himself in order to gain his own immortality. Then you have this dude right here, who can take body parts from anyone and they will be fully integrated into himself. You can remove them from him and clone them. He is crazy. And he's also weak. That's another thing that I really like about this villain, and that's something that I don't think a lot of people are going to like. Everybody wants a new villain that's going to be more powerful than the last. I like that we have a villain here who has some distinguishing weaknesses. He took a huge punch from Sakura, and he's not really doing good at all. He has to perform surgery on himself just to save his own life. And I think that's what's going to make him interesting. He doesn't really have anything to lose here, and he's going to go all out in whatever it is that he's trying to accomplish. And ultimately, I think that's going to make him a more terrifying villain than, say, someone who's just so fucking destructive that there's nothing that anybody can do against him. It also makes him a lot more unpredictable, and it's pretty much a damn guarantee that we're going to see more of his sons in action in the next couple of episodes as well. I mean, they're arming them with all of these crazy weapons. You know that we're going to see them in action, and I can't wait to see what he's going to bring to the table, and maybe even some brand new Sharingan techniques. All the stuff with Sarada in this week's episode was really good, too. I mean, it's frustrating because you know, like, she doesn't know the full story, but you have to see where she's coming from in her anger, how all of this shit just pisses her off, how no one's really giving her any straight answers, and going to Suigetsu was just stupid. I mean, she didn't know any better because she hadn't actually known Suigetsu or anything, but he's just not a really smart guy and not very tactful at all. He's very brash, very loud, and just the way Suigetsu always was. So if you like him, you're going to like him in this episode. Jugo basically stands around and looks cool, and that's pretty much all Jugo ever really did before. And unfortunately, Karin is not in this episode, as she's hanging out at some other base, just getting some sunbathing done. I'm not really sure. But Orochimaru returning in this episode was great, despite the fact that I still think it's really weird that he's allowed to not actually be behind bars. Although, I guess it is good that he is under house arrest. And, of course, he is legitimately helping all of them out by giving them the location of Shin Uchiha. And by the end of the episode, everybody jumps on the frickin' Susanoo bus as they prepare to go kick some Shin ass. So no, this was not an action-packed episode of Boruto, but it was still very good in terms of the story and learning a little bit more about the villain, having some connections to some old things in the past, the return of some classic characters like Orochimaru and his gang, not to mention all of those great drama moments with Sarada. I thought this was a great package just from the story elements. So I'm giving this one a 5 out of 5. I just thought it was a really entertaining and heartfelt episode, especially at the end in the flashback sequences with Sarada and Sakura. I just thought those were very pleasant, and it was just great to finally see Orochimaru come back. Just, man, the King of Pop is back. Isn't that great? Can you just imagine him grabbing his crotch while screaming, "Oh!" Scratch that, reverse it, pretend you didn't hear that. This was a 5 out of 5 from me, and you guys need to check it out. If any of you did watch this week's episode of Boruto, make sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comment section below. Did you like the episode? Did you not like the episode? What was your favorite scene this week? Did you like seeing the return of Orochimaru? Do you think it's pretty fucked up that they allow this guy to basically still experiment and do all of this crazy shit? Basically, they turned him into Hannibal Lecter on a leash. That's the way I see it. But I want to hear your thoughts and what you hope to see with the next big confrontation with Shin Uchiha. Thank you guys for watching this review. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for all things Boruto, anime, and manga related. And make sure to share this video with all your friends. I would love to get more views. I'd love to get more people commenting and chat with you guys. It's always really fun. And of course, if you like the video, why don't you give it a thumbs up? Super easy to do, and it helps us out a lot. Thank you guys again for watching. Take care, and as always, stay down, baby.